Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this.
Now that I've gotten older, the biochemistry aspect, when we look at all these stories as biochemistry, you can synchronize it to the ones that preceded it. And then it leaves no doubt once you have a good knowledge of the chemistry of the body. And so, for example, Noah's Ark, the ark is the electrical arc. And the animals of every kind are the animal nature of mankind. Look how low we can go. And it says, bring of every animal of every kind.
That's
male
so
and female.
interesting.
Right. And the male and females deposit negative charge. And once you bring them on your ark and you can control them for 40 days and 40 nights, which is interesting, the waxing waning of the moon cycle, the influence that it creates on people that aren't stable psychologically creates lunacy, the lunatics. And so the story is, if you can ride that out, you're going to tap into you're going to reach that olive branch, and you're going to, you're going to survive. You're going to get through no matter what the universe throws at you, whatever storm it may be. Once you build that ark and you control every animal of every kind, then you're going to fuck shit up. And all this world of materialism and deception and fraud, you're going to see right through the shit. And they can't affect that,
Yeah,
that brings empowerment to me, at least. And then it can make it to anybody having a human experience. So it can be truth in that light.
Yeah.
So I started, wait a minute. And then you take it to all the stories, Adam and Eve. Are they talking about the splitting of the atom, and like the serpent talking to you is the spine, and it's just it's so deep, the land of milk and honey. And so you look at your pituitary gland and your pineal gland, and your pituitary gland is making oxytocin, milk, and the pineal is creating melatonin and dopamine and dimethyltryptamine, which all look like honey. It's almost like it's glowing, To me, it's like, wait a minute, the land of milk and honey. There we go. We're going back, and there's a number of references, like in the Old Testament. And so the honey, the pine cone, and what's interesting, the biggest statue at the Vatican is a giant pine cone.
Yeah, that's crazy. That I remember learning about that like some years ago and just being like, what? You wouldn't think, right? Like if you just take the Vatican at face value and you never really question it any more deeply, you would think the biggest statue would be Christ, because that's supposedly what it represents. But
that's their foundation. That's what they hide behind.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. But yeah, it's so interesting that their biggest, like, most substantial monument is of the pine cone, which representing the pineal gland. That was just amazing to me to learn that.
That's, to me, it has to be the pineal. It has to be, and to me, that's what they're part of the dark side. They do the opposite. They're under the Luciferian. So what they do the complete opposite. We're doing good stuff, but we're really molesting and torturing and funding all kinds of just the most, like you said, the most negative. And I think that those beings feel that they are obligated to balance out the yin and yang. I don't know. I don't know. I hate it. But that's it. To me, the big war is on the pine cone and the technology that all of us have that sits between the right and left brain. And to me, an interesting thing that I've been able to synchronize is how that pine cone and the story of Christ synchronizes with the all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill, and also the story of Krishna, of Hindus. So when we look at these ones that precede the datings of the Christian things, and obviously the writers were initiated into they all synchronize into the technology of the pine cone, the Most High. It sits on the cerebrum, and it secretes the secretions. It transmutes from the colostrum, which that's where Santa Claus kind of comes from. The colostrum. Are
Interesting.
you familiar? The colostrum of the brain. It creates the oil that sends it to all the different glands to turn into the different secretions. Imagine the technology once you cultivate the discipline of how to say, okay, dopamine now, DMT now. That's a
Yeah.
big threat to establishment. And to me, that was the big war, is separating us from these powers that we
Oh,
can have.
absolutely. I could not possibly agree more. And like this was sort of a slow dawning realization for me that unfolded over years, where it really started for me, like where in Canada, but I know it's the same in the United States and in other colonized areas, but in Canada in particular, there's a history of residential schools where the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children were taken away from their families and the communities and taken to church run schools run by the Catholic, Anglican, and Unitarian churches and suffered unspeakable abuses like sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They had their hair cut. They were deloused. They were put in uniforms. They had all of their special tokens from their families taken away, and the goal was, by the words of the Indian minister at the time, the Indian affairs minister, was to kill the Indian in the child. So it was truly
Wow.
a genocide, and that always really deeply impacted me. My mom taught me about it when I was young, and I carried that for a while. And after a while, I could see that that was a particular, like all of the groups of communities and cultures, the indigenous ones that were more intact and closer to the land and closer to the original blueprint of what we can be, were being most severely attacked. But the rest of us are being attacked too, to keep us separate from our our abilities and our connection with nature. Our integration with nature and the reality, or the texture of reality, what we're actually able to do. We're being kept in that space of separation because it's way easier to treat us as livestock that way.
The goyim, they call us.
Mm,
Yeah, that's referred to in a document. But yeah, it means cattle.
yeah,
So it's just, yeah, that's how we get above that cattle mentality. And I don't know, it's just sad. I can't believe that they would do that to. I mean, we know the atrocities that Canada and the Indian. There was all these stories too of like Indian, the girls going missing from
yeah,
the Crown.
yeah,
And she on a world court, I think they convicted her on
yeah.
that, and then it just sits there. And I don't know. We were hoping something was going to be done.
Hmm.
I still think on a cosmic scale, there is I don't know, some justice for those souls. But yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
blood, the blood cries out. The blood cries out, and they have to have justice one way or the other. And I think whoever is involved in that, in the Vatican, I think that's part of the requirement. I think it's a club of destroying souls and
Yeah,
harvesting them.
yeah,
And to me, the perversion, the most atrocity, abominable thing you can do to a life force and the reason the pine cone is the thing in the big war is that, and that's where interesting enough, it ties into the adrenochrome. So they're being exposed. The universal is shedding light on all this. We're all coming together. The people that are able to see this, and we're taking it head on. And it's nothing to get sad about. It's nothing to be upset about. It's just to reaffirm that we're going to minimalize it. You know,
yeah. I
pave the
I think so too. Like I think becoming aware of it on like greater and greater levels because we have to be because we can't dress the wound properly if we don't actually lance and like, clean out all the pus and all the rotting tissue and like it's like you said at the beginning of our conversation, it's probably going to get really intense and feel really really difficult and we're going to get pushed to extremes that we could
Yeah,
we never really thought, but I also see the same thing that we're headed towards something really beautiful, like really beautiful, but we have to it's a process. We don't just get there.
we have to push through it.
Yeah.
You know, gotta purge through it, and I think with the knowledge that I'm trying to explain as best as I can, I know I'm a mess, and this is the first. It's hard to find people to explain this to, and get it out there and resonate there. But it's really simple. I don't know. Like I said, I'm nobody smart, but it begins to me with like looking at our hands, looking at our body. If you get able to get a hold of Gray's Anatomy book and really start understanding the chemistry of the brain and the outer shell of the brain, the inner shell, the third ventricle. See, to me, you go into Solomon's temple, they're really explaining the brain and the angels or the angles of light of when you command your body and you start communicating with the kingdom and the messengers and all these theologies that we synchronize, they're all there to say, hey bro, I'm doing it, but you can do it even better. All you gotta do is go within. Jesus said it is like, yo, you gotta go inside. That's where the kingdom of heaven is. It's the first thing you should look for. All of them, Buddha, Krishna, and interesting. Look at Buddha's head; it's like a pine cone.
Huh, I know you're right. Now that you say that, I think about it, I'm like, yep, that's the
The
shape.
Krishna, the Hindus, they have Krishna, the red dot. And so this is the cool shit. If you can flow with me, I can flow it. We produce a secretion. Jesus Christ means fish oil. That looks like, if you look at the secretion under a microscope, it'll be just like semen. It'll look like a little fish, a little tadpole. And once you discipline the self, through the meditation, I say the closet technique is when you deprive the light from the pineal. After 15 minutes, melatonin will start shooting out of the pineal gland. So it's a way to heal yourself. And then you go to bed that night, you get another dose of it. So you can cure your cancer, you can cure whatever with yourself. Just tapping into your melatonin more. And like I said, the more you cultivate it, you'll be able to control it on command, like you do your iPhone and all these things. These are all replications of what's going on inside of us. All
Totally.
technology.
Yes, I totally agree with you that our technology is just like a proxy for what actually we can do. Because we can't
Every bit of
accept it in ourselves. We're not there. We haven't been there yet to be able to accept it in ourselves. So we've manifested these external versions of it, but they're just
Well,
projections.
we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned not to. Yeah, look at the NBA. Look at your favorite baller. Like they got the sports and people that don't do well as a kid, and then they're I'm not that great. I'm just me. I mean, just whatever it is. So yeah, we've been cut off. I mean, but to me, we can. It begins with talking and telling yourself, like, look, we can tap into this. And then when you see all these technologies, the iPad, and just when I say Mike Tyson, me and you automatically see Mike Tyson.
Right.
Somebody doesn't know Mike Tyson, it doesn't come up. Like, who? But and what's amazing, you can actually hear his voice without. I mean, you just if you think about anybody that it's kind of like Bitcoin too. Bitcoin's worthless if somebody doesn't accept it, but if somebody's accepting it and it's money or anything, but if somebody doesn't use it, then you were in a division. So to me, knowledge is the same thing, and it can be passed on without books, which books are super important. Which I'm going to plug a book real quick. I keep it nearby. It's Secret Teachings of All Ages, Manly Palmer Hall. If you go on YouTube or BitChute, YouTube, every go away from YouTube, but it's good to go there and try to steal views and fight back against these giants. But Manly P. Hall, all his lectures are there, and he knows all about it. I mean, he was the only person in history that the Freemasons, which the secret society of the history, they're the roots of all the branches, all the different sets of secret societies that contain all this knowledge. Those are the ones that actually brought us Jesus. They're the ones that brought us all the three main religions, Islam. They came from the mystery schools. It's all there. It's all, and it's why the symbols are everywhere.
Yeah.
In the cities, and that's the technologies that, like I said, it's just different technologies. Most people today think, oh, we got to have it in a piece of plastic and a phone, which we do to a degree. But with your knowledge, your power, and the way you're able to visualize and see the Akashic record, or whatever these journeys that I've been hearing, these amazing stories. Yeah, it's just we have all this. We're all there. The conditioning helps us forget it. Keep ignorance is bliss. I don't know. It's just there's so much to it. I want to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I completely agree, and I feel like it's fun to do this work and have these conversations because I honestly don't feel like I'm like an extra super psychic person. Like I shared on Tinfoil Hat, I don't remember being a psychic child. It's just we just all have access to this. It's dormant and it's had to go dormant for survival reasons, but also we're conditioned out of it. But it doesn't mean it's gone. And it's like so normal to us that we don't even notice it most of the time.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I mean, a lot of people I noticed, even just just weird things like, oh my God, I picked up the phone and you were there, and then they just don't think anything else about it. That was crazy, but really there was some kind of electrical charge that brought y'all together at the same time, or, whatever it may
Yes.
be, or oh my God, I was just getting ready to call you, and I don't know. It's hard to explain. And your I think the last podcast you had was a gentleman talking about the dream world, and yeah, there's a lot of truth to the dream world and reality and how they intertwine. I hardly ever remember my dreams, but when I do, I don't. It's months later, something happens, and I can be like, "Oh my God, that was in the dream," and it played out in real life, in real time, and it made me think and theorize, like, do we time travel? And time is not what we were conditioned to think it is. So when you dream, you can go to and from places and happenings, events that have already happened. And to me, like when as little, I remember starting to be able to control the dream by telling myself, like, you can do these things and some amazing feats. So the same thing coincides in real time, real life. That we're all waking up to all this. We can command and control with a degree, and some things are very instant, and then some things play out for sometimes months, years,
Yeah.
and and it requires reflection, and that's part of the reason we're kept so busy is to prevent the reflections and the remembering.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah,
because, like Plato said, you're not learning anything new. You're just remembering.
totally, totally. And it's such a fun and exciting journey. And like, for anybody listening, as we talk about the ways that it's like attempting to be thwarted, I just want to offer because I know that can feel really disempowering to acknowledge that there's like forces that would keep us separate. But I also think that like it's our inherent birthright. It is the trajectory we're on. It's happening. There's no stopping it. So many people are waking up. There's so many connections being made, and it's all a beautiful unfolding. And it's so much of why we come here in the first place because the joy of forgetting who you are almost completely, for some people completely, and then remembering who you are again is so, it's like there's nothing to compare it with.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part, and that's a lot that I learned from a guy, Alan Watts, that does. He's gone. Have you ever heard of Alan Watts?
Yep.
Yeah, he has great explanations on a lot of these subjects for people. So I always recommend people putting that on in the background, and and a lot of times our subconscious picks this up. So the more you kind of get it around you and get it going from, to me, people, he did a lecture on the internet 50 years before the internet, and it was spot on. It was spot on. And I just refer people to get back, and we got access to the stuff. And when we look at history, which we've always, I always tell people, like, you've always been around. I mean, you're just in a different suit. You
Yeah.
know,
Totally.
well, you've always been around, and you're actually in a lot of other places you don't even realize. And
Yes.
that's the whole, like, quantum physics is kind of coming to terms with, and that's the kaleidoscope thing, and the different and infinite levels of dimensions and realities and things that play out. The different choices you make play out on the other timelines, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, to me, it seems like you're learning how to tap into some of those other timelines and see, for not only yourself but for other people.
Yeah, I mean,
So I mean,
I just get glimpses of them, but I remember, or like I can see enough when I'm doing a reading for somebody, I can see enough to help them figure out like where how to pivot from here. Like if they're not happy on the timeline that they're currently on, how to which one is the next most accessible one and how to get there and whatever. But I remember like having this awareness a long time ago, like probably 2005, that there was a I just knew. I just suddenly was sitting on a bus, I don't know, daydreaming, and I just became aware of the fact that there was a version of me that stayed in the first university I went to, and could feel her. Like it was cool. Like I could it was really hazy and fuzzy, but I could feel her and the different life she was experiencing. And I wasn't very practiced then, so I couldn't really harness it, but I felt crazy. Like I couldn't talk to anybody about it because it sounded so like
well, yeah, you got to be
stupid.
careful who you talk to. I mean, you hear stories of, I mean, especially when you're young, you tell your parents, and they take you to a freaking, to me, these guys that don't really know, and then they're like, well, here, try this. Here's some of this, some pharmaceutical. Here, try this out. If your eyes bleed, stop taking it, obviously, and call me,
Yeah.
but try it
Right?
out, and that's, and not like, that's the how primitive we are still to this day with our, some people try. I know they want help, they want to find solutions, but I've just seen so many abuses of power in these positions that are so-called doctors or psychiatrists, and that's part of, where the biochemistry, the spirituality, and consciousness, I think all tie together. Is the more you collectively become aware of your powers, your biochemistry, you are these things, and these writers knew it. The less and less you are going to be taking down these dark paths of people that really don't know either. They've just been certified, which I've experienced tons of people throughout when I was in class get these amazing things just by cheating. So and they go on to be, you know, health officials, and they're, to me, I go in and the doctor's overweight, and how am I? And I'm super healthy, and I'm supposed to take advice from this guy. So it's a big it's a tough, it's a rock and a hard place when you try to help people out with health advice, and when your advice goes against somebody that has education,
Mhm.
you know, which, we trust the science. They tell you to trust the science, but look at Montana. How much did they have to pay out these last few years? I think they had to dissolve their business, and the science that they told everybody to trust actually got everybody sick.
Yeah.
You know, and
Well,
so it's paid science. And
Yeah.
to me, it's all intentional because a lot of the weighing down of the collective people is our nutrition, our deficiencies, and what's pretty amazing is the biochemistry of the body, the tissue cell salts that we need from the fruits and veggies, which we're extracting the light for each cell of the body, which those are all the kids of the earth that receive the gifts of joy from Santa Claus that comes down the chimney from the North Pole in one night, you know, of gifts of life and joy. And so that's to me, all the myths are really biochemistry, the religions, it's really going on inside of us. And the more we cultivate that love and loving ourselves, then we can really help others, you know, really love themselves and see that power. Real quick though, back to the Jesus Christ, the Christian, it's when it makes its journey up the Jordan River, which is your spinal fluid, just like Krishna and Christ, it's going up the Ganges River. And in the Bible, it's real descriptive. The crucifixion takes place in Golgotha. Golgotha means place of the skull.
Wow.
So when we cultivate that discipline through meditation, you raise that vibration and that makes it to Golgotha. And when that crucifixion happens in the skull, the oil, which Jesus Christ means fish oil, the oil anoints the optic thalamus that's attached to the pineal gland, that pine cone. And then when that happens, guess what? The same thing that if you look on the back of a $1 bill, that's what happens. The all seeing eye. And that's the story of Horus. Horus. And he was the Egyptian Christ. And his mother Isis was the Virgin Isis, Virgin Mother. So Genesis, the genes of Isis, the generations of Mother Nature, and the splitting of the atom, and like I was telling you before, it's all the breakdown of the human body, and that's what Leonardo da Vinci knew, and he painted the Last Supper. He knew that not only our biochemistry, these stories play out on the microcosm scale, it's also the sun and the moon, you know, and what we're living on. We're living on another being, you know, it seems like we're like an individual cell that need those raw materials to keep the being happy, you know. So it's just fractals, and you know, we're living.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And we got this going on us, you know. It's just it sounds wild, but these ancients knew that stuff, and they were able to see through the skin of a living being, and not only of a normal living being, but one that was activating their hidden chakras, their DNA fully activated. And that's who the Christ are, and the Christ is in all of us, and the consciousness is back in full force and coming for all the haters, you know.
Yeah.
And it's gonna transmute the hate, and like I said, it's gonna eliminate a lot of the bad stuff. So
Yeah,
that's
I agree with you, and I've interestingly, like, I really love what you're just saying just now about the Christ is in all of us, because through my Akashic record readings, I've come across a lot of people who part of their mission is that they carry the Christ codes. But and they're here, it's like the return of Christ is the return of Christ en masse, because it's no longer on the shoulders of one individual to carry that message. It's like in so many of us that it cannot be suppressed. It just can't.
That's right. That's it. And that's to me, it makes it real to anybody that's having a human experience. But my acceptance, people, you know, how we'll never, I think there's we're all on our journeys. And no matter how much facts you present to some people, how much you show it to the face, it's not their time or their
Yeah,
lifetime
totally.
to understand that. But maybe just that seed that you dropped in this lifetime, hopefully will take fruition in some lifetime down the road, if not this one. And when you do see that happen in this one, it's all the best. But we have to, you know, move on for the ones that don't, you know,
Yes.
and respect it as best as we can. And that's tough for me because you know it's just you know that I guess superhero complex, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think too, like, it's we feel, when we hear like people have got to wake up, people have got to wake up. It is like there're just some people that just aren't, it's not their time. It's not their time. You can't force a seed to germinate before it's ready to germinate. It's not, that's unreasonable. You can't force a baby to be born before it's ready to be born. It doesn't work that way. So we just got to let it be. And also something I respect about the other side, the side that represents, the darkness and the adrenochrome and the suppression of human abilities and things like that, is, man, they know how to play the long game. They know how to play the long game, and the patience, their patience has served them. And it's kind of the same on the side of the light, though, that like we can't throw a hissy fit because it's not going fast enough and we're not seeing instantaneous results right now. I love what you said. Like you plant a seed and then you just let it do its thing. You don't stand there and like demand that it produce fruit right away.
Yeah, okay, I agree. And
Yeah.
sometimes people do that, but yeah, you gotta just gotta let it flow, and sometimes in those cases you'll be surprised. I had a friend that was totally cut off from it and reached out like, "Oh my God, I saw something, I thought of you," and now all of a sudden he's buying the book, you know, with like whether it's Manly P. Hall. There's an interesting writer. If any listeners are interested into the biochemistry, it's not. I'm not that smart, but there's a guy that pointed it out, and he was a biochemist in the early 1900s. And his name's really easy to remember, especially for Americans. George Washington was the first president. This guy, his name was Dr. George Washington Carey. George Washington Carey. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No.
But, yeah, he was writing in the 1900s, and you read his works, and he's telling you about the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, and really showing you how. And if you go into these texts, you can look at the Red Sea. They're really referring to the blood and the atonement and the tissue cell salts is where the word salvation comes from. And in theory, all diseases, psychological or physical, come from these tissue cell salt deficiencies. And it's what's interesting. It's what stars are made out of. So you're a star, essentially. And so when you read guys writing about this stuff, in times there was no internet, interzone. It's just kind of mind blowing. And that's early. You can go to a guy in the 1500s named Paracelsus, who was a healer, and they sucked him out of medical, even though if you look him up, he discovered zinc, hydrogen, toxicology. He knew what the stars were made out of before the spectroscope was around. And they're like, how the hell did he know this? He says it was deep observation into nature. I believe he was using pharmacological agents. He was tapping into what some of the stuff you're tapping into. But he knew this stuff, and he was sucked out of history. My sister's a pediatrician, and I'm teaching her about this stuff, and I feel that they should already know all this. So it's kind of crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's interesting. It's for sure a good observation or a good example of how like the the training system for doctors is flawed. So a doctor as a human being might be full of light and brilliance and totally able to see the complexity of things, but the nature of med school is such that it's so grueling and so demanding, and you can only keep up with what they give you to learn, and you aren't like, there's a lot that's filtered out that's actually super beneficial. And it doesn't mean that doctors are all like corrupt people, just like this, the path of the learning is very, very very curated, very deliberately.
Sure, absolutely, and that's it. Like there was an old way of doing things until we questioned science. There was a picture of them taking kids and had a little duster, and they used to dust the little kids in school with DDT for
Wow.
life. Yeah,
Wow.
until somebody obviously questioned, said, "I don't think this is such a great idea, guys." That's the I guess the trial and error. And then the sad part, like you said, there are the dark forces that do these things intentionally, and it's gotten a lot more brazen, I guess, with the poisoning of foods, the fluoridation of water. So more people find out and reduce fluoride. Another thing that calcifies the pineal gland, where it's not going to wipe it out its functionality, but it's going to minimize it. And ultimately, unfortunately, for some people, it has been a cancer accelerant. Dr. Steenberg from the the Cancer Society, he was in the 50s and 60s. He knew, and they did studies, and you can find the video of him showing the graphs of cities that were fluoridated, cities that weren't fluoridated, and the spike in cancer death, especially dealing with bone cancer. So to me, the real reason it's in there is not for, it could be a eugenics thing or a cancer accelerant for the medical establishment, but it's the main goal was to calcify the population's pineal gland. Think about masses of people with fully activated pineal glands. That is just bad for business if you're Kellogg or Johnson and Johnson or ABC, NBC, CBS,
Yeah,
or
it sure,
whoever.
it sure is bad for business. Totally.
It's not. And like to me, that's what the war, the psychological warfare on the masses from the elite or whoever you want to call that form the governments. Like we said, we can study the bloodline families. The Windsors, which their real name was Saxe, Gosberg, and Gotha. They were descended out of Germanic tribes. There's some of these dark families that, to me, that's when you get into reptilian blood. And the reptilian aspect, we all have it. That's the most ancient part of the brain. And that's part of the psychological aspect in the Bible as well, dealing with that reptilian nature, and that's where ritual, sacrifice, and those lower vibrational beings take wind or take precedence in us as well. If we get involved in those things, I think that's what happens, and especially some in Freemasonry, or if people get into intentionally get into black magic. A lot of good people unknowingly get involved, I think, through Freemasonry or Catholic churches. When we're all sitting there and they're telling you stand up and kneel down, and they walk around, a little incense, and these are all doing things to you that you don't really realize it.
Yep. Yeah.
And, that's I think the knowledge of mind control, mind, the power over people's minds, and their, I guess, like for some churches, I've noticed when I used to go around, they play on the guilt. You haven't been there enough. They try to make people feel guilty, and through those processes, that's how they rope people in. I love churches. I think they do a lot of great things. If we didn't have the good ones out there doing the abundance of good, it would be even worse. So we need those. I think we can take the transformation of the dogmatic, literal version and implant, to me, what the writers, whoever they were really trying to get to, like I said, the individual, who the real Christ is, or whoever the Krishna is, or whoever the Horus is, and bring that out. The more that's done, the less and less, I think we'll suffer as a society. And to me, this thing, no matter where you're born, it reigns true, so that can unite everybody that's having a human experience, and no matter what class you are.
Yeah,
I
I completely love what you're saying, and I just think, like, with religion, like, I love that you acknowledge that there are a lot of good churches or spiritual, groups of worship out there of whatever denomination or faith that are doing beautiful things, and that we don't need to, like, completely throw the baby out with the bathwater. And it's the same with science, like spirituality and even organized religion doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It can be done in a way that empowers people and builds their connection with the divine, and like leads them to freedom. religion, and then science is like to me, the true nature of science is a curiosity about the nature of reality. And some people are very regimented and systematic in their thinking, and they have the ability to try the same process over and over and over, just tweaking the variables, and keep track of the data, and make amazing conclusions based on that. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. The part about science and religion that we're frustrated with is the ways that they've been co-opted and used to manipulate us and are used deceitfully. But the true nature of science and the true nature of religion are actually really beautiful, enlightening things.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's a collaboration. To me, it just shows to me, for me personally, the more I understand it in this light, I mean, then it factors out alien theories. It factors out. I mean, and it's even more mind blowing to me that they were able to acquire this knowledge that seems so far advanced that we're just starting to realize it scientifically in these trillion dollar labs. Like we were dealing with quantum physics and the weird stuff that people call weird. Science is talking about. They're telling you, and to me, I don't know, say in the history of certain companies like CERN, I don't know if we want them tapping into those things. We need people that have had these good experiences, or people that are aware that can control that knowledge in the right light. But but they are verifying these worlds of the unseen, and that's to me what is in and all around us. And the more we know it, the more we can stand up against we can be prepared for when the dark entities or the storms come, or whatever it may be. As crazy and woo woo for some people it may sound, when you look at what system that we all went through as far as education, you can see how they don't teach you anything about this. They don't teach you anything about it. So I think there's so much room that we can switch this thing around. And with the podcast, which is the revolutionary, and the internet that they try to censor, but to me, it got away from them. Wherever they go, one place in Squash, it pops up on Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble. That's the evidence that can't stop the light. It's gonna come. It's gonna get the good souls.
Yeah.
And turn the bad around.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. They can't stop it. It's like the natural trajectory of the evolution of consciousness. It's happening.
And we're a part of it. We're you and I are here, and for you making time and listening to me ramble on, it just means the world to me.
Oh, for you to make time and come on and share your rambles means the world to me. And all of the listeners are a part of it too, because the more, like you said, like when we just talk about this stuff and share it, it just, like it makes such a difference in terms of when you're going through these thoughts on your own, and if you really don't think anybody else is thinking the same way, or that it's really just a few people, it can feel really lonely, and you don't feel as empowered by it necessarily. But when you start connecting with other people who don't have to necessarily agree with everything, but who share a similar perspective, it just has this cascade effect. It's like it grows exponentially the more and more we connect with each other.
It's a comforting thing, and in a cold world, and for some people that are totally isolated where they can't express themselves, or like I said, you got to be careful. You might be shipped down to a doctor and sit off to a loony bin, and you're the one that's right. Just by having those experiences. But I think that's shifting. It's changing. I'm optimist. I kind of stick with when we look at collective history, recorded history, where we've come from, and where we're at now, and where we can go. To me, with the hidden technologies that could have been out 100 years ago, we could probably already been there. The hemp knowledge, the healing powers of the cannabis plant, the hemp plant, when it's used in the right light, just like the magic mushroom. To me, that was the original Eucharist of these religions was the pharmacological agents. They were using it sacredly. They weren't eating them and going
Yeah.
to a rave or going. Which I'm not bashing that. I've had my experience because I was, learning. But if you have the opportunity to know, if you can approach those things in a sacred light, look at it like a microscope, and really approach it in a thankful way, in a different light, I think it has more of an effect. But those things, to me, were the original Eucharist. That's how they were able to see through the skin, understand these things, and then somehow allegorize them into story, people, places, events. But at the same time, that was a way for the Vatican to carnalize them and propagate the literal interpretation, so that separates people from that inside knowledge. And when people come, and this is the problem, is when people look at these people, places, and events in these religious texts as happening outside them, and to me, that's the trickery. That was the
Yeah.
trickery that was done, and it's that's one of the toughest pills to follow for some of the best people on earth. To understand the literal is not really what it seems, and that's where I try to break that down, but in a calm way where it's not going to get because I think the beauty in the biochemistry and the science side is a true way. But to me, when we look at, like I was saying, how we started off these things in a literal way, it's almost nonsense. It's crazy. It can't, it's almost impossible. I'm not saying it can't happen, but yeah, it just to me, it seems that was part of the trickery, to enforce the literal concept, take these texts literally, and don't look at them any other way. And that's, to me, a big part of the separation of people that follow, no matter what religion it is. I think the Christian religion, the Catholic Bible, or the Bibles and those texts, the Old Testament, New Testament, those are just some of the most detailed in the biochemistry. But all of them that precede it, all are, like I said, showing you the same thing: the all-seeing eye, the spinal fluid, the melatonin, the stuff that's in us, and from that's where you can learn to astral travel, live forever, your own immortality.
Yeah, I love the way that you interpret it and explain it through biochemistry. It's absolutely fascinating, and it makes me want to go back and like reread some of those texts from that
Yeah.
perspective. And so, okay, so you mentioned a couple really good books. The one was by, so I wrote down the first one, The Secret Teachings of All the Ages. And then the second one was by Dr. George Washington Carey. What was that one called again?
Well, he has many, a handful of books. They'll pop
Oh, okay.
up if you go. Yeah, but one is the salts of. I got it here. Hold on one second. Here's a look. The relation, the mineral salts of the body to the signs of the zodiac.
Oh, that's
Uh,
so cool. Oh my gosh.
and he has the chart here because, and when you, I was going to tell you, I'm trying to get, if any listeners out there want to jump on, or anybody wants to take this idea and make it happen, it's for anybody and everybody. But the vision is to have an app called Know Thyself, and it would show the body in 3D. It could be a virtual reality app, but it would show the human body, and you would type in your tissue cell salts that you need the most, because you're only in the womb for 9 months. So those 3 months you're not around in, you're not, you wipe those tissue cell salts out faster than the other 9. So you want all 12 daily, but those 3 that you wipe out faster, you want to make sure you're keeping on top of those. And that's so the app would help people monitor their tissue cell salt intake. And not only that, you could go and type in like Oreo cookie, and it'll show what happens when you chew it up, you swallow it, it goes to your stomach, what happens to it after, where it's stored, what bad stuff happens, what good stuff happens. And that could be set for fruits and veggies too.
That's
So
a
you could type in avocado, and it would show you eating the avocado and what the avocado does to the regeneration of the body. So it would be a way to help regenerate the organisms through those tissue cell salts. And then if people could type in Oreo or Dorito, or Gatorade. Maybe they would see what happens and then maybe think twice of guzzling that soda pop or whatever it may be. I'll walk out and eat a chocolate truffle once in a while and have a big old juicy burger or a pizza slice. But yeah, when we do that all the time, that's just the tissue cell salts are what's crucial. So yeah, and what's interesting, the fruits and veggies that we're getting, they all replicate the parts of the body that you look like. If you look at the walnut, it looks like your brain. So those tissue cell salts, those nutrients are specifically for the brain. If you cut a tomato in half, it looks like the valves of a heart. If you look at celery, it's like your femur bones. And so all of those specifically help those certain areas. So it's just amazing how we grow from that. And your lungs look like the roots of the plants, So it's just crazy. Your blood, your river, they're like rivers and creeks, Your major arteries and your little veins, your big veins.
That's really, really, really cool. I'm definitely going to check that book out. And I hope that somebody who has technological proficiencies teams up with you to make that app, because that sounds absolutely brilliant. Like a brilliant idea.
Every doctor office should have it. Any nutrient, anybody. Yeah, that's the vision, that one day everybody can have that in the palm of their hands and really learn, And then the app would be Know Thyself, and if we can do that, not only do show all that, at the same time could show you the authors that knew about this stuff throughout the ages. There was a man in the 1700s in Italy named Giordano Bruno, and they burned him at the stake. And he knew this knowledge. He knew the synchronization of all the religions. And he was a Franciscan monk, and he ran around teaching it. And they killed him off. They said because he was talking about infinite planets and stuff. But when you dig into his books, he cues you into the biochemistry stuff. And there was another guy as well that the Vatican killed off as well. His name was Pico. So if you go Google Pico 900 thesis on Google, and you can get it for free. It's when this guy, he was 26 in the late 1500s, marched down to the Vatican and showed them that you can synchronize these religions. At that time, he was synchronized it with Dionysus and Bacchus. Those were, and if you look at the mosaics of Bacchus and Dionysus in the catacombs of Greece, he has a staff with a pine cone on it, and they turn water into wine. So that's all biochemistry symbolism.
Yeah,
so,
and it's all been around for like that long and longer. It's absolutely amazing. It's truly amazing.
Yeah, we go talk to the doctor about the pineal gland, any doctor now, and they're like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
And they're like,
they might have heard about it.
Or they're probably like, "Oh, you've been watching YouTube videos." I love that's my favorite part about medical professionals, is that condescending, "Oh, you've been getting layperson's education about yourself and your body and your health. Okay, well, let me set you straight with my official knowledge."
With their paid knowledge. My sister is a doctor, and I mean, I've seen what comes from the money of vaccines. I've seen what comes from perks of trips to conventions at Turks and Caicos. Now, come on,
Yeah.
I'm not bashing her. I love her to death, but like I said, we have conversations, and I'm teaching her about tissue cell salts, calcium fluoride, silica. They're all, and that's what our hair, our blood, our nails are made of. And she's like, "What? You're crazy." And I'm like, "No, it's real."
Yeah.
So it's just fun, but it's just truly amazing that we have access to these guys like never before. I know books seem crazy, but yeah, I'm a passionate about these writers, and I feel that if we're alive now and we can take to these podcasts, we can take to YouTube, we can take to all these sites to spread their works now to people that have no idea about them. We connect ourselves with them, and how frustrating it must have been in
Yeah.
their time when they were writing these books. Like, I don't know if you try to write a paragraph about something. For me, it's like, it's hard. I mean, like, fuck. And, they found time in some of them when there wasn't electricity. And I hear people saying, oh, people had more time back then. I'm like, I don't think so. I think it was a little more scarier. You had to get shit done before it got dark. And,
Yeah, that
good luck trying to do things by candlelight. And then you got, think about how bad stomach aches might have been.
right.
Toilet paper issues.
It's true. It's true. Like, even if they did have more time, most people were illiterate and they had to write everything by hand with, like, quills and ink. Like, yeah, yeah, we take so much for granted. It's funny.
It's so crazy. So yeah, that's a passion in me, is these amazing writers, and who knows what they had to go through to get that information out now. And the fact that we still have it around. So I have a library I'm trying to collect and build and take donations and have, so like in 20 years I can be like, look, I got a book, and people would be like, what? Got pages? I'm like, yeah. Out of paper? Yeah.
Pages?
Ink and paper? Oh, can I touch it? Yeah, you touch it.
That's
But,
so funny.
it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be crazy, and yeah, and hopefully with that we can sort of keep surviving the knowledge and keeping it going. I think it's going to be more around than ever. People, and I talk to people that were really cut off, and now with everything that's happened in the last year, they're like, Rich, man, teach me more about that spiritual shit, because to me that's the real key, the real refuge. Once you
Yeah.
understand that, no matter what the universe throws at you, and like I said, when you can really tap into controlling your DMT, God forbid anything bad happens to you on your journey, but these things do happen. You can get in a car wreck and get mangled up very badly and still be alive for months and suffer. I think with this technology, you can exit the body. You can learn how to exit your body, control the movement of the energy.
Hmm.
And ultimately, that's what the writers were saying. You learn how to die. You can control your dying. So when you're
Hmm.
ready to go, let's say you're getting eaten by a lion, you can say, okay, there's no way out. Let's go. Or.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So you don't have to psychologically go through the
yeah,
exact experience. You can just be like,
not,
well, I see the writing on the wall. I'm going to take my exit. Love you, body. Peace.
yeah, that's truly. I think about all these crazy things though, and I just try to, what man has been through, and I kind of feel that, and I just, what when you find out that dark stuff, that really kills you, that
Yeah.
anybody who goes through those experiences, and who could do such things, So to me, the more we dive into these empowering things of who we are through biochemistry, and just looking at your hands and your fingers and how you move them, and we can dance and sing and think of Mike Tyson voices, or just all at once. Simultaneously are all amazing feats we take for granted, and the more we look at them preciously and cultivate it makes for, I think, better time on your journey.
Oh, absolutely. I completely find that for myself, that it makes it a much more fun and fascinating experience to have, where I'm just sort of marveling all the time at the miracle that I am and the miracle that we all are, and what the fuck, this whole entire thing is a friggin' like mind trip.
And our family, our loved ones, they're with you all the way. I don't know. For me, being adopted, I still haven't found out who my birth mom was. I could when I was 18, but I was so busy running and gunning, and just being the cosmic wanderer that I am. Which, yeah, I just never slowed down. But now I'm like, well, what if she needs some help, or she
Uh,
might need some, But I don't know if I want to open up Pandora's box. And what's
yeah.
crazy is I live in the city that I was born, and I grew up an hour away, but I met my wife in school down at the coast, And now living back in the area, going to all these homes every day, people's coming in contact with all these people. And I wonder if I'm, walking up to a distant cousin or a family member of
Right.
that bloodline, not knowing it, So
Right.
it's just so. And
Yeah.
then in theory, in the adoption concept, and a lot of people don't realize, like when you have a child, we're all brothers and sisters, and we're all like, I don't know. So when I have a friend or a client has a child when they have their baby, I'm like, thank you for bringing us into the world, and you're bringing light. And they're just looking at me like, that's so cool that you said. I never looked. And I'm like, yeah, you just people don't realize the miracle of bringing more beings, and when you can not neglect them and love them, and just like animals or anything, and then same thing with dogs, you're helping them on their journey as a dog, and so it's just it's a pretty amazing, all the life, all the different life forms, and in theory, you've been all of that. You've been all that. You were an octopus. Maybe next time you will be an octopus. A tree or whoever, a
Yeah.
cockroach.
Yeah. Right.
But there's good
But
cockroaches.
but who knows? Maybe the perspective of being a cockroach is absolutely fascinating and incredibly rich and like, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? It's
Well,
yeah.
cockroach is interesting. Real quick about the big cockroaches, not the food roaches, but the outside roaches.
Mhm.
They filter our air. They eat mold and mildew that the trees exfoliate. And if we didn't have them out there eating it, our sinuses and allergies would be a lot worse because that mold and mildew would go airborne, which some does get in the air. But if
Yeah.
we didn't have others doing their job, eating that, and then their job, they go to work, they clock in, and they have to recycle all the leaves the leaves and bark mulch. They turn it back into active nutrients, and then they move it back to the trees and plants to feed the plants to give us air. So they're feeding the plants because the plants can't go get their food. The plants are like, hey, can somebody bring me some food, please? And the roaches say, sure, we'll bring you some. Just make some of that good old air for those humans. So
Very,
it's,
very valuable kin members on Earth.
yeah, yeah.
I love
They're just
that.
scary. Uh, as long
Yeah,
as they stay outside and do their job, it's all good.
that's right. Exactly. Like, yeah, can totally live and let live, but please don't invade my living space.
Yeah,
Please.
those are the food. Those are the food roaches, and they are called German roaches, and they break down proteins. So they have to get proteins off of. A lot of people cut fat off meat or discard, into the garbage. They get on it and break it down, and they pick up salmonella, and then they crawl back through the kitchen areas, and then you walk in and get sick from that. So in big apartments in big cities and things like that, that's how people get really sick. And not only that, they breed super fast, and
Yeah.
they like warm space. So they like being inside. The big roaches don't like being inside. They just come in if it's too wet outside, or if it's too dry, they can get wetness around the house. So yeah, if anybody was wondering what these crazy bugs are doing out there, most of them are all there to help the plants give us the big breathing party that everyone is invited to. Everyone.
I love that. I love
And
it.
all you gotta do is just breathe in, breathe out, and through that, that's how you really it activates and assimilates those tissue cell salts that you're eating and trying to create. It helps create new yous, and yeah, you're just creating yous with the tissue cell salts. The trick with the tissue cell salts, for any listeners about it, you lose them quickly when you pee. So a lot of people could be eating the right stuff and not getting results in health. It's you're losing. You might have low stomach acid, and you might not be containing those tissue cell salts. You might be peeing them right out. So I'm not telling you to hold your pee as long as you can, but if you can add like more olive oil to your diet, take spoonful of olive oil or coconut oil, butter, good clean butter helps you retain it. Milk, even I know people are like, oh, pus is in the milk. Milk is actually good in amounts. You know, you don't want to overdo it, but the mucus actually helps carry the tissue cell salts to the parts of the body that need it, to
Mm.
where the body governs where to distribute these things. So I think that that application, we can get it to where it would show that, you know. So you can see when you enter milk, it'll help show you where it helps keep those tissue cell salts before you lose them.
Yeah, I think
And
you're
I
sitting on a gold mine idea there. I really am like, if I knew anything about the logistics of creating an app, I would be like, I'm on it with you, brother. But
yeah,
I'm
we're going
useless
to.
in that part.
It's going to happen, and ultimately it could go into virtual reality. Which, if you study VR apps, it's going to be the future with
Yeah.
VR goggles, and I think that way would be even bigger. With somebody who can go in there and just see their own body in 3D, and you know you can see the heart, the liver, the circulation every time you take a breathe, air, how it puts that fire in the furnace and starts assimilating all the and when you read George Washington Carey's books, it's he has such an amazing way of describing these processes. And there's an artist that there's a band called Tool that used Alex Gray.
Yeah,
His
great.
his paintings are the closest thing of what I would say somebody seeing an activated body. And there's a video that shows kind of the activation of the fire, like I said, the Jesus Christ process of it going up the spinal fluid to the brain. There's a video that kind of shows that happening. So very interesting that he's tapping into some of that knowledge through his artwork, and to me, that's something that it comes within. You tap in. You don't have to read books, and you don't have to. You can just look at yourself. And you go into a mirror and stare real close into your eyes and the pupil, and you see the universe right in your eyeball with the color. If it's green or blue, it's just like a nebula of space. And I don't know, so it's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Pretty cool stuff.
it's
Just the
super
average.
cool stuff. Super cool stuff. And this has been such a fantastic conversation. I feel like we have so much in common that it's hard to boil it down into one one conversation. But I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate your generously sharing your perspective and all of the cool tips and the learning that you've accumulated over time. It's mind-blowing stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to get that out there. I feel like I need, I've been want to get more, do more of getting it out there. So thanks for being a part of this. Let me do it, on your show, which I love it. I'm so glad I found you. Yeah, keep in touch with me any way possible. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I do have an email. It's rj422 at gmail.com for now. I'm trying to switch it off Gmail. I'm trying to help, do different things with these big tech stuff, get away from those guys and help the new guys that are doing the right thing,
Yeah.
But for now, that's a good way to get in contact if anybody wants to reach out. I do have a YouTube channel called Cosmic Wanderer. And I haven't posted in a while. I just make little videos where I jump on. I travel a lot with the kids, and I just like to jump on and like say, "Hey, it's Cosmic Wanderer, giving the big what's up." Go if you get a chance, go check out Dr. George Washington Carey, and I kind of the little spill. So I'm gonna start doing those again on TikTok, because they're quick, and then hopefully get something set up and start doing like live streams on Odyssey and YouTube for now until they ban me. But yeah.
Yeah. I
But
totally
I
think
think
you
this
should.
knowledge, they won't bend. So I think we should be good if I stick to that and keep the politics out.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. No mentioning of those keywords that we did touch on here. Keeping those out,
Yeah, yeah.
avoiding the shadow banning.
That's right. Yeah, it's so wrong though. But that's when you study history, that's what's always been at war: truth, the empowerment of individuals at a mass level. That's just a big threat to the small few that hire people, that pay off people to keep things in line. And to me, all that is crumbling. They know it. They're stressing. They're scrambling. Look at all the mainstream news all over the world. They can't keep up with some guy with a $70 Logitech camera in his garage giving news. They can't keep up with it, you know? So that gives me hope. And if anybody gets a chance, check out Salty Cracker. Sorry, I had to plug him, but he's a good friend, and he's leading the way of light, truth, good stuff. So anyway, I know you've got to run. Got to feed.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I appreciate your time so much. I'm really glad we were able to do this.
Let's do it again.
I'll
get more organized.
Yeah, I'll just look forward to connecting with you again because I know it's going to happen, brother.
Anytime you were like, hey, I need a dude on, because that's what I heard you on Sam's show, which I'm going to see Sam tonight in Raleigh.
Awesome.
Yeah.
With Johnny and his aunt and his aunt's black boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go give the big what's up and try to say what's up, because they're all doing, everybody's doing their work. Anybody out there that's just doing what they love to do, and in the information world, any kind of information that has truth in it, we got to get it out there, whatever it may be, as long as it's true, it's real. And to me, when you can see, you have eyes, we have a head, the biochemistry, you can't refute. You are a human being. That's proof you're amazing something or other, and you can do amazing stuff, no matter what situation, how far gone you think you are, no matter how old you are, because really, it's never ending.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much. Be in touch. I'll reach out if you need anything, and I wish you the most amazing. I know you're getting ready to have a little one, so I wish you the best. Thank you for bringing us into the world.
Aw, thank you so much. Thank you, brother. Have a great day, and thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Much love. Peace.
Hello, beautiful soul. Thank you so much for listening to Third Eye Awakening. If you love the show and you want to show me some support, as well as get some rich and awesome extra content, then you can support me through Rockfin or Patreon. It really goes a long way to help me create Third Eye Awakening and keep it free for everyone and ad-free, because isn't that nice? Isn't it so nice to listen to a podcast without any ads on it? I feel like it is. No shade to anybody who puts ads on their podcast, but I just love creating content and I love having ad-free content. So in order to do that, I've created a Rockfin account and a Patreon account with all kinds of juicy conversations and solo rants and riffs and sort of trainings on spiritual topics, metaphysical topics, just cool shit to anchor in some of that multidimensional light consciousness and expand your mind. Thank you always so much, whether you choose to support or not. It just means the world to me to have you listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.